Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. My special guest today is Steve Nagib. Steve is a curious soul turned guide for modern professionals. After a decade training elite athletes, he realized physical performance wasn't enough. People were breaking mentally and emotionally. So in 2023, he took a global sabbatical, which that sounds amazing, chasing questions that didn't yet have words. That journey led to a new mission, optimizing the full human experience. Today, Steve helps achievers live, lead, and love without leaving themselves behind, bringing heart back into high performance. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Karen. I feel like this is a long time coming for many reasons, so I'm stoked. I appreciate it.
I just want to start with telling the audience how we met. Steve works for a company, part of the time at least, called Aspire, and I am an Aspire member. And also, Steve is a speaking coach with the Stages program, and I'm in that program as well. Is any of that changing anytime soon, or are those your roles moving forward in the company?
Those are two of the many hats that I wear, for sure.
Okay. I know. You got a lot of hats going on. Okay, so one of the things I like to ask my guests when they come on the show, because as my audience is complex trauma survivors, I know you do a ton to help survivors, but I want to look at your story first. And I know you probably have a few. I've been privileged to hear one or two of them. The last one I heard during the last stages event was very compelling, but I'll let you share what you would like. Is there a part of your story where you felt like there was some trauma that came up that would maybe help them resonate, get to know you a little better?
Yeah, I love that question because it could be, as you and I both know and I've talked about, I think we define trauma as, and we being people, right? The general population define trauma as being this big, massive event in our life that takes place that only we and maybe a few other people have had to endure. Going off to war, abuse, this, that, and the other. And while that's true, those are definitely examples of trauma. I think you and I both know that trauma, the way I define it, is anytime we have a perceived loss of control. And that could be in a moment that is seemingly harmless to the people around us, but for whatever reason resonates with us at a deeper level and teaches us a lesson of survival in that environment. So, as you mentioned, there's a big story that I've had in my life a few years ago that I could tell later. But I think for kind of the way that you're asking me today, for the purpose of this episode, I'd love to share an experience that I didn't even realize was trauma at the time, but something as small as in fifth grade when I brought home a report card and it had straight A's on it, math, science, English, history, whatever was on there, straight A's. And all I remember my dad saying in that moment was, there's always room for improvement. That's all he said. I was so excited. I was like, Dad, look, I got straight A's. Can I have that new bike or whatever it was? Whatever a fifth grader would want. I don't remember what I was asking for. That's the crazy part though, because what the only thing I do remember is him saying there's always room for improvement. And basically what he was saying is they should have been A pluses. And for me, that turned into a moment that defined the rest of my life of I'm not good enough, right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not getting enough done, which then in my adulthood, as I've started unpacking and uncovering these things, has led to I must suffer and sacrifice in order to gain success or feel successful, which Karen, you and I both know that's not true. We don't have to do that. We can experience success today if we wanted to. But that to me is, it's not a air quotes traditional trauma that we would say is like this big thing that people experience, but it was definitely a lesson that served me in some parts of my life, but definitely haven't served me in all parts of my life. And it's a sneaky one that has actually had a massive impact on my life.
I'm so glad you shared that example because I have one similar and I never made the connection until I've been working on my healing for 28 plus years. But my story was also in the fifth grade, and I actually had all A pluses on one of my report cards. So you thought, oh, your parents are going to be delighted with you. And what happened was, it was the very first time in my life my father said, and because he was really abusive, he said, I'm really proud of you. And so
Mm.
I took that to mean, oh, I'm finally good enough. I just have to have all perfect scores in all my classes.
Yeah.
So then that whole perfection and that served me. Like I got a full scholarship and to college, and I've done really well academically, even though I started out in special ed in the younger grades, but I worked so hard to prove myself. And then I only had value when I got the hundreds or the A pluses was my takeaway. So that one compliment from him had too much power. And I didn't make that connection to my perfectionistic tendencies until recently with all the writing I do for my healing. But isn't
Mhm.
that interesting? You didn't quite make the mark. And if you had made the mark, who knows what he would have said. So our parents are just so damn imperfect. They really mess us up, don't they?
They do. It's funny. As I grow up, I'm finding a larger sense of forgiveness for them, especially as I grow up. I don't know if being a parent is in the cards for me or not. I'm 31. We'll see what happens, but I definitely view them with much more grace. They're just, I don't know what I'm doing. They don't know, they didn't know what they're doing. None of us know what we want to do when we grow up. But you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. Imperfect is probably the best word to use because as kids, we're taught through so many different avenues in society that our parents are the epitome of perfect. So we have to listen
right.
to them simply because they said so. And that may not be the case all the time. So I appreciate your word choice there.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you listening, if you're not in a place of forgiveness yet, it's really okay. It's a process. The most important piece is feeling some peace for yourself at some point. Because that whole expecting your parents to I don't know, never make mistakes or never cause any trauma is often unrealistic, especially if they themselves have had multiple traumas. And that was the case with my parents. They were both themselves survivors. So, of course, they were hurting, right? So, that's what's helped my grace. I have more grace based on compassion, based on what I know as a professional. But when it comes to the personal way I feel, I hold them in higher standards. Damn it, I deserved better parenting than what I got. So
Mm,
two things can be true. I deserve better, and yeah, they were hurting people.
yeah,
What are your
I
thoughts
love it.
about that?
What's that?
What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, spot on. I couldn't agree more. It's this idea of let me actually go a different route with it. There's a phrase that I use all the time, and that phrase is you alone are responsible for your emotional experience. So the simplest way I can describe that is someone bumps me in the bar, right? Say so like a guy, big guy, dude, shoulder checks me right in the chest as he's walking by. I alone am responsible for my emotional experience, which means I can choose to be angry, hurt, and want to fight the guy, and no one would probably bat an eye. Or I could choose to have compassion, right? I could think to myself, okay, he shoulder checked me. I know I didn't do anything wrong, malicious, or hurtful to this man. He must be having a bad day. I have the option to choose compassion towards him, right? I have the option to choose feeling honestly sorry. Like he physically hurt me. I'm gonna emotionally feel sorry for that man because I don't know what he's got going on in his day. I know my truth. My truth is I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm not gonna let it ruin my day. I'm gonna go out and about and live the life I want to live. The reason I say that is to your point of like where our parents are at, they're so imperfect, but they're trying their best. And we, especially as kids, a lot of the times don't have the full context of their situation. So take what I just used as like getting shoulder checked in the bar to a kid viewing his parents. His parents are the stranger, right? And we're the person in the bar, we're the kid. If that stranger, in this case our parents, does something that makes us feel not the best, let's call it, we have no idea because we're kids. They're not giving us full context. We have no idea what they're going through, right? All we know how to do is to absorb the interaction, right? And then we get to decide how we're going to emotionally respond to it. I think that's where a lot of parents if it's parenting is the hardest thing in the world. I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I know how to be a good parent. But I got to imagine it's the hardest thing in the world because every single thing that comes out of your mouth, every single thing that you do on a day-to-day basis, the way you act, the way you behave, the way you dress, the way you talk to other people. My mom always said, monkey see, monkey do. Like kids are always going to do, act, and feel the way that their parents are exemplifying. So it's the hardest job in the world because you have to be on 24/7. And when you're not, you're still on, meaning your kids are still watching you. So it's an interesting job that I have not yet signed up for.
Coming, I feel it. So before we go move on to what's inspiring about the work that you do, like how you make a difference to others, want to give you another opportunity to share anything else that comes up in terms of your story. I know you have good stories, but is there another one you'd like to share before we move on?
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have. I got plenty of good stories. The title of
Just
this
pick
one,
one
I'll
more.
get, what's that?
I said, just pick one more.
The title of this one, I would say, is basically when your best dream becomes your worst nightmare. And this was the story that you were alluding to in the very beginning.
Thank you, Jesus. I wanted you to tell this.
I'll give the
It's
45
juicy,
minute
Steve.
version in a few.
It's juice. It's a juicy story. You know that.
It is. I like to tease people with it sometimes. The shortest version I can give you is it was 2019. I was in my mid 20s. I was working at a college as an athletic trainer in Washington State, and I got a call to basically become the head of sports medicine for the NBA Academy in Africa. And what the NBA does is they set up all these international academies around the world to basically create a farm system for the NBA. So I got the opportunity to move to Senegal. I was basically given the keys to the palace and I could do whatever I want, meaning I had all of the resources and an unlimited budget from the NBA to set up a sports medicine infrastructure across the continent. It was a lot for a 25-year-old to have, but it was something that I really wanted to do and that I was ready for. What I didn't know when I was in Senegal, and they say every good story or no good story starts after the time of midnight, and this was definitely after midnight. I was hanging out with some friends, we were driving a car. What I didn't know about the country of Senegal is marijuana, unlike the US, I've lived in Colorado, Oregon, Washington, states where it has been recreationally legal for a long time. It's still very illegal in Senegal. So before I know it, I'm getting tapped on the shoulder by two undercover policemen at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm stone cold sober. But for whatever reason, they wanted to check the car, which the car, let's say, was not so sober. And they found marijuana in the center console. I ended up spending 2 weeks in a maximum security Senegalese prison, after which I immediately lost my dream job as the head of sports medicine for the NBA Academy in Africa. The reason why I can like smile through this whole story is during those 2 weeks when I was sitting in that Senegalese prison, when I got there, it was the scariest thing of my life. I that we defined trauma
My
earlier.
heart races even the second time hearing it.
What's that?
My heart was racing even the second time hearing it, and I knew it was coming. Yeah,
It's
it's
crazy
scary.
because like my heart was racing too when I got in. It is the most gruesome prison environment you could ever forget all the things you know about American prisons. Like just forget all those things for a second. I'm talking like 50 men in a room with four concrete walls and a concrete floor. That's how I slept for 2 weeks. And when I got in, I was absolutely experiencing an experience that was going to lend its hand to having trauma afterwards, right? Because I had more than a perceived loss of control, I had actually lost control. And that being the scariest moment of my life ended up turning into, and I always say, lead your heart with curiosity. It ended up turning into one of the coolest experiences of my life because while on day, let's call it zero, I was super scared. I walked in, no one spoke English. The head inmate was questioning me through a translator from a different country, and it was a whole, excuse my language, it was a shit show. About 48 hours later, through this broken translation, they kept asking me what I did for a living, and I knew the word athletic trainer wasn't going to mean anything, so I said physio, which then ended up everyone in the prison thought I was a doctor, which I didn't correct
Mhm.
anyone. I was like, all right, let's see how it goes. By day 4, I want to say, I had a line of about 50 inmates outside my cell waiting for me to treat their ailments, whether it was their elbow, their knee, their hamstring, their back, their neck, their shoulder. And for the next, we'll call it 7 days, I went from being this scared kid who had no idea how to survive 2 weeks in a foreign Senegalese prison to all of a sudden, I wouldn't even call it having celebrity status, but I was an asset. I was bringing value to the prison and I was helping people, right? I was helping people with their physical ailments. So all of a sudden, they wanted to take care of me. And I swear I couldn't have gotten through that experience without first leading with curiosity. I've done all of this studying of trauma work post that experience. And I think that's why I can tell it with such a light heart because I learned a lot, but I don't think I suffered a quote unquote trauma in that experience because I got to turn what could have been the worst experience of my life into witnessing some of the most pure versions of camaraderie and brotherhood and genuine like humanness. I don't know if that's a word, but just
Yeah,
people
it is.
being human to other humans. And it's a story that I love to tell because it was one of the coolest experiences of my life.
It's unique. I have not met anybody else in a third world country prison. At least I don't think so. I have plenty of clients that have been to regular USA prison and
Mm.
even family members, but you're the first overseas and has such a great, powerful story because it's like you've read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Is that fair to say?
No,
Have you?
but I'll add it to the list for sure.
Oh, it's he was a Jewish psychiatrist in the concentration camps, and he survived because he was a doctor. And so the Nazis used him to make sure everybody else was okay, but he still suffered a lot, had parasites and was starving. And but the point of that, the comparison is he made meaning out of that experience, and you made meaning out of the experience. Like you got to learn that the humanness behind the stories, and not everybody was a cold-blooded killer. There were some, but there were other people that were just really down on their luck and didn't have opportunities. And so you got to have that compassion, you get to practice that. And didn't you come up with a framework as well?
Yeah,
You
the
started talking about it a little bit. You want to share a little more about that? Because it's really cool.
the connection compass. I love that thing. So the connection compass, I'll have to send you a picture of it if you want to put it in the show notes. Is
Yeah.
something that was born from a conversation I was having with a friend who we were just shooting the shit over dinner. She was asking me about my background. This story came up, and she had noticed a theme in my life was always curiosity. Curiosity being my North Star and how I wanted to connect with people. My brother always says about himself and me is we never meet strangers. As soon as we meet someone, we're curious enough to be like, we just want to know their story and we become immediate friends. I like to say that there's 8 billion people in the world and I want to meet all 8 billion of them. So this woman through this conversation talking about Senegal and talking about kind of my childhood growing up in Boy Scouts, hiking, mountaineering, trekking through both the Appalachian Trail on the East Coast and the Pacific Crest Trail on the West Coast. She saw this idea of this compass to give me direction of my life as a theme, and then curiosity being my North Star. So we developed something called the connection compass, where curiosity is the North Star. If you move from curiosity clockwise, so you're going like northeast, southwest, what I say is there's four words for all directions, right? So curiosity is north. If you approach a conversation with true curiosity, you can't help but to have compassion for the other person. Just like me and the guy in the bar that shoulder bumps me in the chest, right? I can choose to have compassion for him only after I get curious about what kind of day he's having. If I judge him for his action, that's not curiosity. I can't have compassion for him. So curiosity is the precursor to compassion. The second I have compassion for somebody, we go down to the south pole of the compass. All of a sudden, I can open up an opportunity for us to have a two-way street of communication. So compassion moves to, or sorry, curiosity moves to compassion. Compassion moves to communication. Once you, me, him, whoever it is, start communicating, only then can we also start collaborating, which is the west pole of my compass. So I lead with curiosity. That curiosity turns into compassion. Compassion opens up the opportunity for communication. And as soon as we're communicating, we're going to start collaborating
Collaboration.
to impact the world together.
And we're collaborating right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that so much. I remember you talking about that during the last workshop I attended with you, and I was like, oh, that's a genius concept. I love that. And
Mm.
Steve, tell me a little bit about your next step in your coaching business. What type of clients are you wanting to work with, and how can people that align with your message, how can they reach out to you?
Yep. We got two big projects going on. One personal, I'll call it one personal, one professional. They're both personal, they're both professional. If people want to interact with me personally, I'm simply Steve Nagib on all platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, social, any type of social media. And then my website is simply stevenagib.com. I got lucky with a very American first name and a very Egyptian last name because my parents are both immigrants from Egypt. So just Steve, Steve, and then my last name, nagib.com. That website is always changing based on what I've got going on. We're toying around with that website. A bunch of my friends call me the CEO whisperer. So a lot of the clients that I'm currently working with on a one-on-one level are high-level executives or CEOs. Those are the individuals I love to work with because one, the work that we do together can have this massive ripple effect because normally they're talking to lots of people, have lots of employees, affecting lots of lives. But also, I like and enjoy the challenge of working with those elite professionals because it's what I really know. For 10 years, before I got into coaching and consulting around this type of work, for 10 years, I was treating and managing athlete injuries at the highest level. Olympians, professional athletes, Division I college athletes. So I've taken that skill set and adapted it from the athlete to the CEO. So that's what I'm working on personally slash professionally. But the company that I have dove into pretty heavily with probably not only my best friend, but also the person who's had the biggest impact on my life, Larry Yatch. He's a Navy SEAL that him and I have developed and are continuing to scale a company called TruePath. The website there is truepathmastery.com, but drop the E off of true. So it's TRUPATH mastery.com. And we run all sorts of courses around the topic of trauma, not necessarily revisiting the trauma. I think it's a little bit different than the work you do, Karen. I think the work definitely complements each other. The work that we do inside of TruePath is identifying the behavior patterns that are present in your life now as a result of whatever happened before, right? So we don't visit whatever happened before. We say, okay, what's the behavior pattern in your life now? Let's become aware of it. Let's identify it. And then let's figure out, is it serving you or is it not serving you? If it's not serving you, let's break it. Let's rewrite the pattern and let's build a life where you get to enjoy true peace, joy, and fulfillment every single day versus feeling like you're a victim to whatever has happened in your past. So it's really, we use things like neuro-linguistic patterning and other tools to really rewrite the script in your brain as it's written today. TruePath is something that Larry built, I'm helping perfect, and we're going to scale it across the globe, hopefully, in these next few years. If you're interested in me, you can go to my website, but if you're interested in the work that I do on a daily basis, TruePath is definitely the place to go.
And what I really love about True Path is that attention to how those early traumas can impact your ability to be abundant in all ways, but there's also a focus on financial abundance. So that's actually really beautiful too.
Yeah, we have developed, we're running a course called Financial True Path right now, and we'll be continuing to run those for the foreseeable future. So if you feel like you're working super hard every single day, specifically we talk to entrepreneurs in that course, but anyone, if you feel like you're working super hard every single day and you feel like money equals freedom in your life, meaning the more money you get, the more free you're going to feel, but even though you're earning a ton of money, you don't feel more free, then that course is for you. Because the second you believe money equals freedom is the second that you become a prisoner inside of the world of trying to attain more money. And we want to break you free of that prison. So it's my favorite course, to be honest.
Yeah, I've gotten to sample some pieces of it. It's pretty juicy. Yeah. I have done some other work in that arena. So it's very fascinating to learn more always about that. Steve, we talked earlier and you mentioned that you're going to be a speaker in the summit. So I want to do a shout out for that. Steve has graciously agreed to be a speaker and possibly sponsor. We're going to work that out on the back end. The next summit is called Finding Your Voice After Trauma. So we're looking for expert speakers to share what kind of traumas that's happened that kind of got them stuck for a bit and how they broke through that and their journey and helping other people finding their voice after trauma. And Steve is positioned in a really beautiful way to help people because of his experience, helping a lot of elite people in the field. He's got the speaking gig down. He knows how to tell stories. He knows how to help speakers get better. And then also he has his own traumas that he's healed from. And plus with the coaching, yeah, you're just like a perfect fit for it. So it's very exciting.
Amazing. I'm stoked. I'm ready for it.
Okay. I feel like I had maybe one other thing. Let's see if I'm missing anything. I think. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. Here's my question. So there's somebody listening today and they are stuck. Now I know you have 8,000 tools. What is the very first thing you would recommend to someone who's really stuck? Maybe they're depressed, maybe they're struggling financially, maybe they're on the brink of a breakup. What's one thing that you know would be healing or helpful no matter what's going on with them? Easy question, I know.
There's so many.
You could simply say work out. Like, aren't you a physical trainer?
I will say movement heals everything. I'm telling you. When I'm struggling, and there's so many things I want to say, but one of the most concise and therefore memorable sentences that I tell people to ask themselves is the simple question of, is that true? And it sounds so simple, but if you're struggling, if you're stuck, if you're going through a separation, a divorce, a breakup, you've lost a loved one, you lost your dog, you lost your cat, you lost your goldfish, whatever it is
You
gonna.
lost your goldfish.
I had to flush many goldfish down the toilet as a kid. Those weren't easy experiences. Every time we have a experience in our life, we react to it emotionally. It's the nature of being human. That's not a wrong thing. What's not right or wrong, I like to say, but what's effective or ineffective is which emotions we choose to sit in. Meaning we don't have full control over our initial emotional reaction. Somebody bumps me in the bar. I'll keep using that example, right? Someone shoulder checks me in the bar. I don't have full control over the initial reaction of, let's just call it anger, right? What I didn't mention earlier is I'm not choosing compassion immediately, right? Immediately, I'm probably choosing anger, maybe a little bit of confusion, put myself in a bit of a fight or flight scenario. What I do have influence over, though, is how long I want to sit in that anger. And for me, the fastest way for me to get out of that initial, what I call ineffective emotion, it's not right or wrong, it's not good or bad, but how to get out of that ineffective emotion or that emotion that's probably going to drive me to take inappropriate action later on is simply asking myself the question, what is true? Or is that true? Is it true that guy has a malicious intent to hurt me? Probably not, right? So as soon as I answer that question for myself, is that true? All of a sudden, I have way more emotions I get to choose from and decide which of those ones I want to sit in, right? I get to sit in compassion for the next 45 minutes, and I only had to sit in anger for the first 4 to 5 seconds. Too many of us are going to stay stuck in that initial reaction of anger for hours, days, weeks, months, years, whatever it is, not realizing that as soon as we start asking ourselves what is true, what is not true, right? Then we give ourselves the opportunity to then choose whichever emotion we want to sit in long term. So my one, it's complex. It's not complicated, right? It's actually pretty simple. Just ask yourself simply, is that true? And see where your brain takes you.
I absolutely love that question. I'm in a book club right now for coaches, and one of the chapters is titled that, Is That True? So I really love it because it's a great practice in perceptual shifting, looking at it from different angles, right? Perceptual shifting. Oh, is there another way I can look at this scenario? And usually there is. So I think you're the first person on my podcast who's actually mentioned that. So I think that was beautiful.
Awesome. And it's good timing with the book club. So say how
Yeah,
serendipitous.
that's right. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today and offering value to survivors. I believe it's episodes like this that can really inspire people to know that there's hope. They don't have to stay stuck. They can choose something else. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to more.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.